Every Friday, 1 to 2 p.m., only on Wave 105. Listen, learn, share.
Here for the community. Wave 105 FM.
Hey.
We're 11 minutes into the hour of 2 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Right now, it's the Guam Behavioral and Wellness Hour. Starting off the show, Mr. Pauly Suba. Buenas.
We do want to thank our sponsors, and that is GTA. We start with you. Subway, you got to refresh to be fresh. Micropack, bringing Guam the brand you trust and the service you deserve since 1968. Triple J, it's big deals on big wheels at Triple J Ford. Save thousands off retail. Drive home a new Ford F-150 starting at just $39,995. Visit Triple J Ford today. Customers first. And Chili's Grill and Bar. Chili's, more life and great food and memories happen here. Biba Badness! 671-922-1051 is the number. It is now the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center Hour. And with us representing Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center is Ms. Bernie Matthews, half a day.
Half a day.
And representing the grief recovery specialist, I apologize, Ms. Bernie McGill, half a day.
Yes, half a day.
So we're talking about National Grief Awareness Day. And so we're dedicating the show to an experience that touches every single household in Guam. Yet so often we get carried in silence, right?
Yes.
All of that gets carried in silence. And so it's not like the best topic that we want to talk about on a Friday, but it's necessary,
Yes,
right?
amen.
And so I just wanted to give you both the opportunity, and we can start with you, Miss Bernice. Let us know a little bit of your background and what you do at Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center. I'm sorry.
I'm
Miss
Bernice.
Yes, and Bernie.
We got the B team here.
Right. Yeah, sorry, Miss Bernice.
No, it's okay. So, yes, I'm Bernice Arceo McGill. I'm from Chalampago. Woohoo! Central girl. So I work very closely with the Guam Behavioral. Our nonprofit is Game Time Guam, and we do a lot of youth suicide prevention and awareness in the community. And then, yes, part of the work I do, I became a grief recovery specialist. And, with suicide, the root of it is pain. And so being able to understand grief and how pain affects everybody allowed me the opportunity to really serve the community in the capacity right where they're at, where they're hurting. Yeah.
And Miss Bernie?
I'm a psychiatric social worker with Guam Behavioral Health, so I'm a counselor for our adult outpatient program.
Okay.
So I do provide counseling for a range of things, and grief is definitely one of them that we do provide services for.
Okay. And both of you have met each other before many times?
No.
No. Because the only reason, the reason why I asked this is because this is not the first time.
Yeah.
Kevin does a great job of putting together these talk shows, right?
Yes.
And the subject matter that we talk about every Friday. And a lot of times it's not a surprise to know that you do great work in the community.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't see all of the players, right?
Yeah.
And so it's great to see, that both of you are here and you can relate, because
Yes,
I've seen
definitely,
I've seen this before also with people that work with children that are on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Right? And so you see so many programs and resources that our community is not aware of, right?
Yeah.
And so this is an opportunity for us to understand who both of you are and how you support those that need it the most, especially grief.
Yeah.
When I think of grief, I think about loss. I think about family members. We all experience loss, right? I mean,
Yes,
it's part of life. But there are other forms of grief, right? Things that just, you lose your job. Maybe it's not even your job. Maybe it's your mom's job.
Yeah.
But that takes a lot out of, a family's livelihood.
Yes, absolutely.
When somebody comes home and says, I just lost my job. And so maybe we can kind of break that down and unpack that a little bit about, what are people experiencing when they come to you?
Yeah. So according to the Grief Recovery Institute, there are 43 different losses that a person will experience in their lifetime. So a lot of people do think that, grief is just death or divorce, right? Those are, but really grief is the normal and natural human response to a loss of anything meaningful. While of course losing a loved one is it's a very heavy grief, there's also so many things that you can go through that can bring grief, right? Like you just said, a life transition, right? Losing a job, or even something happy like or good like retirement, or even like purchasing a new home, right? Like even though you're excited, you have this new house, or you have this new season in your life, you're going to be retired and get to travel, enjoy your grandbabies. A part of you will still grieve, like actually, your work community, or whatever you did at your job. So grief is very broad. It's not just limited to a loss of a death or divorce. There's just other life changes that are meaningful that you're losing or you're transitioning out of.
Do you want to add it?
Well, I mean, and I think like Bernice was saying, right? I think it's very important that people do recognize that we don't want to put it into just this box of like,
That's true.
You lost somebody you love, especially like health, right?
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Mental health as well, right? These are things that people have to adjust to, and sometimes it's kind of like envisioning a different type of life for themselves than what they originally had. So it's kind of losing that, in a sense, dream or image they had before can be part of that grief process.
Right.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier, and I just want to again remind our audience, and we talk about some very heavy issues, real issues that so many people experience throughout their life, and that is suicide. And so you mentioned that earlier, right? So we just want our audience to be aware that that is going to come up during this conversation. So, I mean, we should be having conversations with our children, our husbands, our wives, our mothers, our fathers, and try to understand, what they could be going through every day, right? And so that's going to help with the conversation.
Yeah, definitely. With suicide, right, it's very complex, right? There's obviously the root is pain, but depending on the individual, it could be, a lot of times in our training where we see an image of what is that called, like an iceberg, right? So the world or people may only see the top part, or if you found out, someone passed away from suicide, there may be a specific event that, drove them to that. But in the big picture, it's literally like a iceberg. So there's so many years of deep pain that they were struggling with. And if you've ever gone through a grief journey or lost anyone significant in your life, that season is just, it's like you have tunnel vision, even though you're surrounded in a room of, family and community, you really feel like you're just alone. You're just alone. And so a lot of times when we help the children, we explain about pain. We put it kind of in their, in their world to understand. And then what we really try to promote and try to encourage kids, it's like, you're going to go through life. It's going to be painful. Things are going to hurt, right? But taking your life should never be the answer. Reach out for help. Your parents, even though you probably, how it is when you're young, like think that they don't understand you, they don't care about you, but they're really your number one advocate, and that if you were to just, ask for help, whether it's through your teachers, your counselors, there's other people in the community, but Guam does lead the nation in suicide. We're, thank God the numbers have moved a little bit. When we first started this work in 2000, when I first came in Island 13, I think it was like one person every 10 days. And the recent epidemiological report, I always get that name wrong.
You did it great.
I'm like phonetics. It's now one person every 14 days. So the good thing is, the needle has moved, right? But just imagine if you're on a biweekly paycheck period situation, every time you get paid, a family on Guam loses a loved one. And so this is really like our heart and passion to spread awareness, to spread hope, right, in our community. And just to let people know, like, we're not, and we're not exempt from trials and tribulations, but
Right.
there is ways to get help and ask for help, and to normalize that asking for help, because
Right.
I think a lot of times our culture, especially like men, right, they they don't want to, like, they're not going to come up straight up and be like, hey man, I'm struggling.
Right. No, yeah.
So, I think kind of making it, something of like normalizing it.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay to ask for help. You're not weak. You're not, and then, just going from there, just.
But
spreading
also
awareness.
from somebody that might not see some of those signs or think,
Oh,
my
yes,
brother was
yes.
fine. What happened? And so how do we be more sensitive to what somebody is facing, so that way we can have these conversations before they take their own life? And I know that we shouldn't even be putting blame on ourselves either,
Yeah.
right? Because that also is grief too.
Yes, definitely.
But
yeah.
when I even think about, when you have somebody that's close to you, it could be the best friend, it could be a lover, it could be a father or a mother, right? Or just somebody that is so special to you. Even decades go by and you still feel this grief, right? For
Yeah.
them. I don't want to say it's never going to be the same, but everybody goes through, experiences things differently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to think, like, right, because, I mean, for the most part, right, we're always told this is grief, right, and you're told the 5 stages, right, and you go through those, but really at the end of the day, it's very unique to the individual, right, and like you said, it's not, there's this expectation that, in a year, you should be over or you should already have recovered from that, right? Because it's more of a healing process for everybody. And so even things months from now, years from now, like anniversary dates, right? Holidays, those can still bring up the memories and it can still bring up that sense and feeling of loss. So I think sometimes, like I said earlier, right, we kind of try to put it into this box of this is how, in a sense, society determines or dictates how grief would look.
Yeah.
But it's very unique and very individualized for the person, because how you may experience it and display it may not be necessarily how I do it.
Right.
And so I think, especially like if we're also looking at suicide, right, we want to understand that, one, it's a very, I guess for most people, an awkward or uncomfortable
Yeah.
topic to discuss. But sometimes it's really just somebody's in pain and they just want somebody to kind of hear them and feel a sense of like acknowledgement, like you are going through a rough time. And so I think when we look at grief and even with suicide, we're always left with that question of like, what could I have done, or how come I didn't see it? But it manifests itself differently, right? I'm not going to come out and just be sad or crying, but I may become irritable, right? Or I withdraw more from the people around me. So I think
Right.
these are some signs that people can look at and reach out for. And
What about sometimes when people will feel bad when they start to feel joy at a certain point and then realize, why do I feel like this? I shouldn't feel joy.
Yeah.
Because maybe they feel like they still have to grieve more, or feel like that means I'm forgetting this person.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily true, right?
Yeah. So, I believe, especially during a time of grief or a grief journey, like, for example, if you have a loved one pass away, Guam is really strong in the family, right? Where they get together, if you're Catholic, they have the rosaries and all the, the meetings, and that's very, helpful and therapeutic. And so what I like to encourage people is that, joy and sadness can coexist. We're physical beings, right? We're a 3-part being. We're physical, spiritual, and emotional. So, of course, part of you in the grief process, like let's say you have a loved one who passed away. I took care of my dad before he passed away. It was very an emotional, trying time. When he finally did pass, a part of me was happy that he wasn't suffering anymore, right? Seeing him go through 5 months of just, deteriorating. sorry, that's probably not a good word, but, slowly losing his life was so painful that when he wasn't suffering, I was at peace with that. But then, of course, my heart's deeply saddened because now I don't, that was my lunch partner, my my buddy, and my dad, and so, yes, grief, joy and sadness can coexist. When you have family coming from off island, obviously you're happy to see them, and so it's kind of cool because they do say grief is like, it's like waves, right? So there's not one straight line situation like the 5, stages. Grief is very individual. It's complex. Even though, let's say you've lost a parent and I lost a parent, we're not going to have the same experiences, right? But the griever feels that pain 100% capacity at at their level. So to answer your question, it's very true. It's okay. You can have those moments of joy. You can have those moments of sadness. It's all a part of the journey. And when you see your family that you haven't seen in a long time, you're not gonna be sad. You know what I mean? I mean, of course, why you're seeing them, of course, but in the moment, you're gonna rejoice. You're gonna reminisce. You're gonna have fun. You're gonna talk, and that's all a part of the healing journey. Yeah.
Because it could, like, the holiday season's coming up, right?
Yes.
And so some people might say it's too soon. It's too soon to celebrate.
Yeah.
We're not celebrating.
Yeah.
And that can also take a toll on a whole family, right? Because everybody could be grieving at the same time, but in different ways.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so some people might want to celebrate, and that doesn't necessarily mean that that's being insensitive.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, like my dad, I was blessed to have 2 dads. So my dad, David Arceo, he loved Christmas, and so of course, obviously, when he first passed away in 2002, Christmas was very somber. It was a very difficult thing. But we still he had grandkids, so our kids, we had to still move forward, right? But I think right after you have a loss, maybe for that. Maybe that year or 2 years, grief or like how you celebrate traditions could just be a little different, right? And then eventually, when you guys are okay and you want to go back to the other traditions, you can do those. So what we did which was really cool, it's like my dad loved Christmas. So on his birthday is end of November. So me and my sisters, wherever we are in the world, will put up our Christmas tree. And so it was like kind of like honoring him on his birthday, because he loved Christmas. And then little by little, we started, incorporating different traditions, so, depending on, what is the loss and how, like, let's say if you lost a parent and your mom or your dad's still alive, you kind of, our culture, we respect the next generation, right? So it's kind of like, okay, Mom, what do you want to do? What is in your capacity to do, right? If it's just, or we're just going to have a dinner instead of like, we're the ones that have the family gathering, So it may look different just in the beginning, but you can always go back and either, pick up those traditions again or, start new ones, right? There's really no right or wrong answer. And I think it's also to just what your family is comfortable with at the time,
Before we take the break, you both mentioned 5 steps of grieving. Can we break that down? What are they?
So if I'm correct, again, we're looking at like the different stages can be
5 stages.
Anywhere from anger, acceptance, bargaining, denial, and then I'm going
Depression.
and depression. There you go. I was like,
It's
going
okay.
back to the other one. Tag team here, tag team.
We're a good team.
We're going to be partnering more often here.
Yeah. So I guess when we look at these stages, again, when we think stages, right, like we think in order.
Yeah, that's
But
right.
it's just more of these are things that are kind of known to happen.
Okay.
But it doesn't necessarily mean if you don't experience one, then something's wrong. You're not grieving properly.
Okay.
Right. But like it just goes through the healing process for somebody. It's like these are just our different ways, or maybe there's some natural coping mechanisms of how you heal. But yeah, we often hear the 5 stages of grief, but I don't think it necessarily you have to hit those stages to say, oh, you're grieving
And
properly.
in that order.
In that
Yeah.
order, yeah.
Right.
And there's a lot of misconceptions because when you study the 5 stages, from my understanding, it was created by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She did a thesis on the stages of grief, but I think the people that she studied were cancer patients. So within cancer patients, this is what they experience. So when I lost my father, one of the stages is anger, and I just remember not being angry, and I was I had a beautiful life. My dad was an awesome dad, and I didn't struggle with that. So if I look at the 5 stages, and like you said, if they're supposed to be in order, I'd be like, oh man, did I not love my dad? Did I not? I didn't agree. I'm not angry. I did go through a depression and all the different things, but yeah, because it's very unique. I think there's a lot of misconceptions around grief that you have to go through these steps and they're in order, when really it's very unique. Some people may not. Some people, grief has no time limit, so they may not ever accept it. Like this person is gone. You know what I mean? Yeah, there's just a lot of misconceptions around grief and the 5 stages. But, if you're listening, just be encouraged that, they're not in order. You don't have to go through all of them. Everybody's unique. You may go through some. You may go through none, It just also, too, depends on what's the relationship you had with the person who you lost, or the situation, whether it's a job or, that type of loss of health.
It's really there's no right or wrong way to do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't grieve wrong and you can't grieve right. So it's just you being able to just heal and process on your own, at your own time and at your own speed.
Right.
Yeah.
When we come back from the break, I kind of want to discuss how somebody that is grieving can seek assistance from Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, and also from a grief specialist. Yes. So we'll do that on the other side of these, Ryan, and we'll take the break, and then when we come back, we'll be joined once again from our friends Bernie Matthews of Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, and Bernice McGill, a grief recovery specialist, right here on Wave 105.
Wave 105, the talk of Guam.
Need a truck that works as hard as you do? Then head to Triple J Ford's Big Deals on Big Wheels sales event. For a limited time, score prices below dealer cost and drive home America's best-selling truck for 49 years. The legendary Ford F-150, starting at just $39,995. Choose from the rugged XL, stylish STX, or well-equipped XLT. All backed by the strength, capability, and innovation only Ford delivers. But don't wait. All stock must go. Visit Triple J Ford in Upper Tumon or get pre-approved and shop online at triplejguam.com. Triple J Ford, customers first.
Eat fresh in just a few clicks. Order online at subwaypacific.com for pickup or delivery. Online ordering at subwaypacific.com is powered by Good to Go. We deliver. At Subway, you gotta refresh to be fresh.
I'm Fred Berdaliu Jr. The future of Guam's security and prosperity will be challenged by social and economic conditions. From drug-related crimes to higher housing costs, gas prices, food prices, and the decline in tourist arrivals impacting retail businesses. Our people will need leaders who are strong, visionary, disciplined, and have the best credentials to address these issues. I'm ready to get to work as your senator. I'm Fred Berdaliu Jr., and I approve this message.
Haggadah, get ready. The all-new Cost You Less Haggadah is celebrating its grand opening weekend, August 28th through the 30th. Join us Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for family fun, free giveaways, live entertainment, and incredible grand opening celebrations. Experience a fresh new way to shop with more savings, more value, and more what Guam families need every day. Don't miss the Cost You Less Haggadah grand opening weekend, August 28th through the 30th. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram for details.
Explore, snap, and share for a chance to win a round-trip ticket to Taiwan. Join the Guam Photo Hunt and visit iconic landmarks and hidden gems island-wide. The more locations you photograph, the more chances you have to win exciting prizes. Learn more and submit to win online at visitguam.com/photo hunt. Terms and conditions apply. Explore, snap, and rediscover Guam. Brought to you by the Guam Visitors Bureau.
Want to learn more about Guam's charter schools and what makes them unique? Tune in to Charter School Hour every Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. right here on Wave 105. Hear directly from Guam's charter schools about their students, programs, success stories, and the different approaches they're bringing to education. That's the Charter School Hour, presented by the Guam Charter School Alliance. Every Friday, 1 to 2 p.m., only on Wave 105. Listen, learn, share.
With decades experience in Guam and the region, Take Care members have access to the largest offering of free fitness classes and health education programs. Membership also includes the high-quality credentialed network of on- and off-island healthcare providers and the one-stop FHB Health Center and urgent care. Ask for Take Care. Call 671-647-3526. Go to takecareasia.com for more information. Take Care. Our island, your health plan.
Half a day, I'm Callan Perez and I'm running for senator. Service to our island has shaped my life, from community advocacy and substance abuse recovery to supporting sustainable agriculture. Inspired by my parents, Dr. Perez and Dr. Erickson, I remain committed to serving the people of Guam. I'm Callan Perez and I approve this message.
Island Voices, Island Conversations. Wave 105, the talk of Guam.
.35 in the afternoon. Sending it back to Mr. Pauly Suba. Buenas.
All right, Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center hour right here on Wave 105. Again, joined with me is Bernice McGill, a grief recovery specialist, and Bernie Matthews of Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center. And so we were breaking down some of the 5 stages of grief, and you don't necessarily have to go through all of them, and definitely not in that order. But I did want to give you both the opportunity to share with our audience how does somebody get the support that they need when working with you or maybe your partners at Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center?
Well, of course, right? So Guam Behavioral Center is open 24/7.
Okay.
So if at any point, any time of the day, right, you're more than welcome. They're more than welcome to come in, get, go through our intake process. But also being able, if they need to talk to somebody on the spot, that is an opportunity that is available for them. Of course, there's also our 988 number that they can reach out to. And this is also access 24/7, and they'll be connected to somebody who can help them. If like you wake up at 2 a.m. and you want to talk to someone just to like process something, or maybe you're like, my mind is racing with all these thoughts and I just need to let it out. We do have our 988 that is available for them.
Anxiety.
Yeah, anything.
Right,
Yeah.
understood. And so as a grief recovery specialist, how do you empower, how do you support individuals and maybe even sometimes families?
Yes. So my husband and I own a nonprofit, Game Time. Website is gametimeguam.org. We have 3 programs that we run right now. So with grief recovery, it is a action-based education program. So we put people through the program. It's an 8-week course. And then a lot of people in our network, they've been grief recovery specialists. The program's been around for 40 years, translated in different languages. A lot of people that are in our network, like I was telling Bernie, they are licensed physicians and therapists, clinicians, but they also, when they bring them into their office, they'll let them go through the program first. And then, if they need more services, then they refer them out, or they will service them. So we have one person on our team who is getting her licensure, to become a therapist, and so we can actually open the doors. That would be one of my dreams, to have like a center, right? Like kind of like a family service center where all the families can come. But right now we're pretty much just on the prevention side, and then I take in clients one-on-one or work with the families. We do have a healing workshop coming up. It's on our website. It's a 2-day program at Dusit, and we just go. We just deal with one family at a time. We have a program in school. We're starting at the very, young level, elementary level, kind of just putting that awareness in. It's called The Huddle, Strategies to Win in Life. So what I did was, my husband and I are pastors, so we bring the faith-based component in. And I took a lot of Bible stories that dealt with the emotions around suicide, so like loneliness, there's so many, loneliness, abandonment, rejection, and then from those Bible stories, teach the kids like hey, even these people in the Bible who had a powerful life, they they also went through, right?
Job.
Yeah, exactly. Joseph, Jesus. The scripture says, though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we will fear no evil. But we're not exempt just because we love God. We are going to walk through. So with grief and with people struggling with suicide, a lot of times they're in that deep pit. So they don't know how to go through the valley.
Right.
They're just in the valley.
Right.
So what I love about grief recovery, you don't have to be faith-based. It's a program that can appeal to anyone in pain. But the greatest job the greatest compliment I got during my job is, Bernice, because of you, I got my faith back. So when a lot of people go through a significant loss, the number one person they're angry at is God. And even just coming from a pastor's perspective, I think we miss it in the Christian community, right? Obviously, we know we're physical, spiritual, and emotional, so we always want to say, God, he's in a better place, or, God will guide you. God, we always want to throw God into it, right? Which, of course, right, that's, I believe Jesus is the answer. However, for a person who's in deep pain, that's not what they want to hear in that moment, And this is a funny story, but it does relate. When I gave birth to my son, Isaiah, I gave birth too fast. I did not have any epidural or any type of whatever, but I was definitely, in a lot of physical pain, right? And my husband, I had just given my life to Christ. My husband, he's just like, honey, we need to pray. We need to pray. He's walking, it's his first time. He don't know what he's doing. We're both like, oh my gosh. And so I literally grabbed him and went straight exorcist, I don't want to pray. So, I'm in this physical pain, giving birth to this huge baby. I was so tiny at the time. Isaiah was 9 pounds, 5 ounces. I had no epidural. And my husband's, he means well, right? He's like, we need to pray, but in that moment, that's not what I needed to hear. So
I can relate to that.
So I always picture that when I'm, with a family. Yes, I want to bring the spiritual part into it. Of course, I'm going to be who I am. However, that they might be angry at God, and it's okay. So if I feel that, I will automatically just, put that on the table. Hey, I know I'm a pastor. I know right now you're in a lot of pain. You may be angry at God. You're not going to offend me if these are real conversations that we need to have, And then eventually, of course, when they work through the program and they get out of that dark valley, then they come back and oh my gosh, Bernice, okay, thank you, that kind of thing, So I think just to be sensitive to that person in that moment, and just acknowledging their pain can bring a lot of healing, as opposed to they're in a better place. Or sometimes the things that, people here, I work with a lot of widows, and especially when they're young, people tell them, oh, you're so beautiful, you're so young, you can get another husband, and that's definitely not something to say. And I know people mean well, but sometimes if we don't know what to say, just acknowledging what they, or even just asking hey, can I give you a hug, or, that kind of thing, or offering, instead of saying, we always do this, right? What do we say? We're oh, let me know if you need anything, right? That's so vague. Sometimes they're I need everything, so maybe sometimes even asking those direct questions, hey, so, can I pray for you? Can I drop off, a meal, or do you want to go grab coffee, or do you need me to pick up the kids? Don't forget to pay your power bill. Do you need help with that? Stuff like that. Because when a person is grieving, they there's a disconnect between their brain and their heart. So some of the things that you normally are supposed to do, you probably just don't remember that. I mean, I remember walking out the house one time with 2 different color shoes. They were the same style shoes. So when I just put my foot under the shelf thing to put it on, it fit perfectly, right? And then when I got out of the car, I was oh my gosh, I'm literally wearing a brown and a black shoe. But it's, again, there's the disconnect. That's a normal reaction. Right. Yeah.
A lot of times, well, Kevin gave me some what is called suppressed grief often surfaces physically and emotionally, right?
Yes.
And it looks like Kevin gave me chronic burnout or fatigue, emotional irritability, changes in sleep or appetite, physical tension, or more serious areas like suicide, mental illnesses, domestic violence, and even homicide. And so these are definitely times where we should be calling somebody like yourself, and definitely Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, because this is, again, the resources and the people, right, that are going to stand in the gap for you.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I think something that's important to note too, right, is a lot of times it's very important to understand ourselves or be aware of ourselves, right? These changes that happen in us, because, and studies and things have shown, right, that it takes quite a long time for people to seek any type of help or even treatment for what they're going through. And I think one of the big things I've noticed in doing what I do, right, there's a lot of stigma behind seeking help, right?
Yeah.
And reaching out, like Bernice said earlier, there's this idea that, oh, I'm not weak. If I show that I need help or I need support in some way, it's because I'm weak, right? But that's not the reality of it. The reality is just sometimes when we're at our lowest or in our heaviest moments, sometimes we just need somebody there to help us, right? And so when I work with like my clients and stuff, one of the biggest things I try to tell them is I'll meet you where you're at. Like, we're not gonna like try to get you somewhere else, right? Like, if this is where you're at today, right here, right now, that's where we're at. But first, let's understand what is happening right here and right now with you, right? But I think that's something for a lot of people to just keep in mind is noticing these changes that happen for you.
Sure. Yeah, I think also as an employee, as a manager, right? We see our own employees, people we work with, will sometimes call out, and so we also should be somewhat sensitive to that. Because if somebody says, "Hey, I need to stay home because my dog might be, is not well or has been hit, and I can't come into work. I can't think right. I just lost my dog." It would be insensitive for me to be like, "It's just a dog. Like, take a couple hours and come in." But they're grieving right now.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And there is a thing called, we did a program called Grief in the Workplace, because I know studies showed like, when a person is grieving, remember there's a disconnect between your heart and your mind. So I know in our business, we used to do air conditioning. To be very honest, I mismanaged, $35,000 because we had like 7 projects going on, and it was just a lot, with my own personal situation going on. And thank God for my husband, his forgiveness, and God give us strategies. But grief in the workplace is a real thing. And then I think by law, we only have like 3 days. You know what I mean? It's like if you're Catholic and you're doing the 9-day rosary and all the things, like 3 days is not even enough.
And to some, not enough for a dog owner. That is their baby, right? And
exactly.
who am I to measure grief?
And I love what the Grief Recovery Institute teaches is don't compare your grief, right? So someone losing a dog, and yes, obviously it's different than losing a child, but to them that pain, they're feeling that pain 100% of the time, 100%, you know what I mean? So it's like, you can't say, oh no, I lost my dad, or I lost my spouse, this is more painful than you. Like, and that's very helpful too, because like I said, if someone lost their job, or again, if they're grieving because they're retired, it's a good thing. And then someone else, lost a child, they're like, oh no, my grief is, but for the person who maybe wherever they worked was also their family, their identity, maybe they did awesome things for the community and their work, and then now they're like, okay, that chapter is no longer in my life, that's still painful.
I mean, for a lot of us, we're grieving right now Dolly Parton, right?
Oh, yes.
And so even a celebrity like that can affect somebody's life, right? And we feel that pain in so many different ways, right? And I'm not saying people should just call out, but even at that, as an employer or somebody that that manages people, there are ways to be sensitive to them while they grieve, and just showing, right, that genuine care.
I was gonna say, one of the most powerful things you can do with a griever is just be a heart with ears. Like she was saying, I'm gonna meet you right where you're at. So sometimes it's like, I mean, because I am a pastor, I always, when someone calls me, I have to say like, okay, do you want me to just listen, or do you want me to actually advise you? So, if they say, oh, Bernice, I just want to share my heart, that I'm like, I had to learn to be quiet and really just hear their heart. And a lot of times, if you're just a heart with ears and people just letting out, what they're feeling at that moment, like sometimes that's all they need, and then I think our natural response, right, is to say, oh, be strong, or all the myths right behind grief. But really just acknowledging their pain. Like I can't even imagine how hard that was for you. I know this is a very difficult season. If I know the person is Christian, of course I'll be like, I'll pray for you. I'll pray for your strength. If I don't know, then I'll just be like, I'll be thinking of you, sending you a big hug. Because again, you want to meet them right where they're at.
And this community too, I think we understand. Obviously, we can do more, right? But when you go to the funeral, or a lot of times I see the flowers that are up there, right? And a lot of times it is their employer, right? Multiple employers are just showing, that they're here to support you. Right, and you see it when you come through, and people are coming in to share their condolences. A lot of times, you are seeing coworkers, you are seeing employers, business owners, senators, governors coming in because they understand that you are going through a tough time. We only have a few more minutes left, and I just wanted to make sure that we're hitting all the topics. And if we need to redirect to anything, I know Kevin also shared with me some healthy daily outlets. Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center recommends for adults processing grief. And anybody can jump in here when we're talking about creating space for reflection, honoring memories, physical care, and professional counseling.
Amen. Yes, I really believe journaling is really awesome too, right? Especially for men, right? Sometimes you guys process things internally and you're not going to come out, right? Or, like if, let's say you're the man of the house, or let's say you're the, pretty much the leader, right? A lot of times people are already dumping on you, and so you don't know where to go or what to do. So journaling is very helpful. You can get a journal at Ross, like less than $5, and you can even address it to your loved one, and then kind of like just share whatever's on your heart. Like that's very powerful. I like to recommend that a lot for the kids. Maybe not so much on social media because people will go and put their their comments and stuff, and then that can bring a whole set of grief. But definitely like journaling is very powerful. Journaling, writing down kind of like what you're feeling at that moment. Just kind of like letting it out, right? Also to sports. So what we do at game time. A more positive way to help with the deep pain is through sports. So whether it's walking, physical exercise, becoming part of the mom soccer club, whatever, just trying to engage in something physical, because just like when people cut themselves, right, what they're trying to do is transfer an emotional pain to something physical, and that release is actually what helps them. So when you're actually like exercising, it releases the endorphins. I mean, I don't know if we can say this online, but, men, they're physical beings, right? So sometimes some of the STIRBs, short-term energy relieving behaviors, when people have a broken heart, they want to fill it with these STIRBs. So one of them is exercise. There's food, right? I used to be very skinny. I gained a lot of weight. My dad died. I made food, tried to heal my broken heart. There's shopping, right? Some people come into a lot of money, life insurance. That's a true STIRB. And then, of course, there's the bad ones, the drugs and alcohol, which if we don't get a hold of that can lead to an addiction. So definitely. And then, sex is what I was going to say. So a lot of times, for married couples, if you're like, man, my husband was really or my spouse is really like wanting to have sex often than before, it could be they're grieving, and that's their physical, something that they're trying to their physical pain, they're trying to transfer it to that, for that release. So those are all, normal reactions. Obviously, we want to stay towards the more positive ones, so that it doesn't lead to an addiction, that kind of thing. But if you're experiencing a little bit of everything, it's a normal reaction,
And of course, there's all the professional counseling, right? That's important. I'm very glad to hear that we have what you and your husband do, right? Grief recovery specialist. Do you know Kate Baltazar?
Oh, yes.
I remember her talking that she is also a grief recovery specialist, right? Because sometimes we can kind of get trapped in the trauma or trapped in the grief, and we can sometimes gravitate to others that are there too. And that the phrase trauma bonding can be very dangerous.
Oh, yes. And then, when people are experiencing a grief or like a deep pain, you have such tunnel vision, right? So I think meeting someone who is kind of going through the same thing. I think that's where the trauma bonding happens, is because they can understand you, and so that's why originally it was supposed to be Michelle Pangolin, and she shares her story, how she lost her husband, and so we started the Widows Women Support Group because Michelle was my good friend, and then my cousin Dar Garcia, she's a Brown now, Dar Garcia Brown. I kind of connected them together, and then they would meet in my office, and then all the widows, they would come in and have a support group because they felt like nobody understood, like nobody can really understand their pain, and the Bible says iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpens another one countenance. So it's like just understanding, like, yes, our journey might be different, but the fact that we share this experience, it can be helpful in different ways. Yeah.
Right.
But
but everybody recognizes that this is something that we can heal from and not stay in this depression.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yes, and that's the hope. It's like, I love what they say, with grief recovery. It's there's no what is it called? There's no to heal your broken heart, like there's no timeline on that, right? There's kind of like, if you were going through heart surgery, the minute you find out you need heart surgery, or you need a heart surgery, that you'll just go right away, right? Or they'll medevac you. And so it's the same thing, like there's not a, like, you don't have to wait. There's no specific time to wait to be healed. I can't think of the word right now, but it's basically like, as soon as you lose someone, if you're ready and you're willing to do the work, we can start working with you right away.
Right.
Some people, I'll invite them. I'll kind of go through the concepts when we do the grief support group. We'll go through the concepts, right? Kind of like normalizing, hey, this is what you're feeling. You're normal. When you're ready to go through the program, we can put you through it. But some people are not ready, and it's okay. We gotta. It's action based, so they have to do the work.
Right.
And it's not an easy program to go through, but what we teach them, they can use it throughout their life. Yeah.
That's why we really do appreciate the 988 Suicide and Crisis Hotline, right? It's available 24/7.
Yes.
Not only you don't need to call, you can also text as well, right? And so what I noticed too during the typhoons, that was all part of the Joint Information Center releases, right? So the drawing attention and highlighting that even these are life-changing experiences, typhoons, and one after another causes great trauma, right?
Yeah.
And then loss too. Loss of your home causes more grief.
Oh yeah, for
and
sure.
So the fact that we have specialists like you even during and after a typhoon is important as well. And so that's kind of what we're paying attention to throughout this time during El Nino. It causes a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we might have missed or wanted to share? Again, I know Kevin mentioned that we are recognizing National Grief Awareness Day, right? And so there's a proclamation signing today at Hyatt?
Yes.
Okay. And so that's where you're headed to next? Yeah, I want to make sure you get there. And is it culminating with any other awareness, or this is specifically for grief recovery? National Grief Awareness Day.
September is suicide prevention, and then I think it's addiction or
I think substance.
Yeah, substance abuse. Yeah,
Okay.
Substance abuse month as well.
Got it. Yeah.
So they kind of go hand in hand,
Sure.
or they affect each other. So yeah, we're excited for the proclamation signing, and every September we always try to do something in the community, and even if you can't, you don't think something small is insignificant.
Right.
Just reaching out to a friend or even asking like, hey, are you okay?
Right.
Like what's going on? That can do so much for a person, as opposed to, having a nonprofit and doing all these things in the community, just one person at a time.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Bernie Matthews of Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, Bernice McGill, Grief Recovery Specialist. Thank you so very much for having this conversation with us. We are KGUM FM in Dededo, Guam. Once again, this has been the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center Hour.
News, I'm Ben Thomas. Amid his trade war with Canada, President Trump's taken further action, signing an executive order that would rename Lake